Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Ian,
My name's Josslyn.
and today we will be reviewing the film. Drumroll, please. CODA! Thank you. CODA!
Whoa.
It stands for Child of Deaf Adults. So, the quick summary is that Ruby is the only hearing member of a deaf family from Gloucester, Massachusetts. At 17, she works early mornings before school to help her parents and brother to keep their fishing business afloat. But in joining her high school's choir club, Ruby finds herself drawn to both her duet partner and her latent passion for singing. So, Amelia Jones plays the lead role of Ruby Rossi, and her father is played by Troy Kotsur, Frank Rossi, and her brother, named Leo Rossi, is played by Daniel Durant, and her mother, Jackie Rossi, is played by Marley Matlin. And for this movie, they cast deaf members for her family, and I think they did a great job doing that.
I believe so too, obviously. Um, okay, from the critics, they received an amazing 94% for Rotten Tomatoes, and from the audience, they received a 91%, obviously, from Rotten Tomatoes too. And from IMDb, they received an 8 out of 10, which, if you guys remember, recap from Red Notice, that is a great improvement, bro.
Definitely is a great improvement.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about. Since this movie was basically based on deaf people, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of people, I do remember they were mentioning how the sign language is not accurate at all.
Mhm.
Like for the people that actually know signs. So
Mhm.
what's your opinion on that?
I do think that's 100% a valid point. I think that the storyline itself and the plot, how it was written, it was kind of tear-jerking. I know I got a little emotional when watching it as well, but I do believe that to preserve the authenticity and as well as like how correct the sign language is, I believe they could have done an improvement. Maybe they could have hired like a ASL interpreter, but I think that it was definitely a moment that was probably going to open more doors for representation in Hollywood, but they definitely could have improved on basically the authenticity and the correctness of the film, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh-huh.
Also, a lot of deaf people, when watching this movie, they were
Uh-huh.
really upset about it because they thought like this movie was based on the whole family depending on the kid. So
Mhm.
all the deaf people watching was like, I don't depend on my own kid. So I like basically I'm just independent by myself.
Uh-huh.
And they were really upset about this because they thought it was really like inaccurate, even though some people do depend on their kid to hear, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's your opinion on that too?
Well, I think that this story is really big for like teens especially because it's kind of the moment where the family is kind of going through a time of transition because Ruby is a high school senior, she's getting ready to graduate, and it's kind of an unsure time, if you will, like
Yeah,
for
definitely.
her and her future because she doesn't know if she's going to pursue college or if she's going to help out with the family business. And I do see and observe that like it's portrayed to be very their family is very dependent on Ruby as the only interpreter between like two different languages. And
Mm.
I do think that that could be perhaps better portrayed as like the family is more independent, but I feel like to create that dynamic and kind of like dramatic effect, it had to be done to like kind of make it a little more dramatic for Ruby leaving her family because it was a real tearjerker for a lot of critics. They commented, but honestly, I do think that they did a nice job, but once again, could be a better job in the authenticity and actually representing what the deaf community genuinely thought. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I also agree with you. I do think that like the deaf people, they just like they didn't want to make a scene that they actually depended on their kid,
Uh
so they
huh.
want to like go independently, right? But
Mm-hmm.
obviously everyone needs to like know what's happening around them if they can't hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of just like the same as your opinion.
Yeah, like Moving on to kind of like the cost and the production, CODA reportedly cost $10 million to make, and I think that that was like pretty budget efficient, honestly. Not much to talk about on their budget because they didn't have like complex shots or complex editing, and I feel like that really contributed to the vulnerability of the film because it was just like such a raw film, and there were no like A-list actors like in Red Notice. But I do think that the film was just such a vulnerable film and like piece of art. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah. Obviously you mentioned that you like got a little teary-eyed, like waterworks
I
during
did.
this movie. I personally didn't like see like obviously they portrayed the theme really well, right?
Uh-huh.
But I feel like I didn't really receive it when I was watching it. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't get that emotional watching it. The only time I did was probably at the end when she left.
Uh-huh.
But like it wasn't even a lot either way. So like
Uh-huh.
to me it was just it was a decent movie. I think I just prefer like more action, you know, because like
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm
100%.
just more of a yeah.
More of an action gal.
Yes, I am.
All right, so moving on to their scores and awards, I know they received amazing feedback from both the critics and the public. They got a 90% like and over for the Rotten Tomatoes score. Do you agree with this or is this something like you're kind of torn on?
It's something I'm definitely like kind of thinking about because
Uh-huh.
a lot of people they like these kind of movies, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of personal opinion depending on what you like to watch. It's just what
Mhm.
depends. So to me, it's a pretty valid score because for all the people that do like watching that kind of movies, it was a pretty good score. But for
Yeah.
me, it definitely wouldn't be the highest because I'm just not interested in these kind of movies, you know?
Mhm. So
Yeah.
I think this is one of those movies that definitely like has a target audience. Like it's not for something for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh-huh.
I also wanted to talk about how it won the best picture in academic like not academic, sorry, Academy Awards. It won best picture, but a lot of people like believe that it shouldn't have because there was
Yeah.
like they mentioned a lot more other movies that had better pictures than
Mhm.
CODA.
Mhm.
So they were like really torn between this, and I wanted to know if you think they deserve best picture.
Um, Adding on to like the best picture, I know they won two other awards, Academy Awards. They were nominated, I think, for best screenplay or as well as best
Mm.
supporting actor for Troy Kotsur, and I think for best adapted screenplay, I think it was definitely really well written. And for best supporting actor, Troy Kotsur, I think his performance was stellar because he was able to communicate like definitely a big strong influence on Ruby's life and actions, although it might not be like perfectly authentic or the sign might not be correct or the message that they're going in. I think they all did a stellar job. But on the topic that you asked me about the best picture, I do think that they did a great job doing like a vulnerable picture and like portraying kind of the hardships of life because when watching it I really felt like that the film was just so raw and so realistic. So I think that they did a good job, but maybe different people would say otherwise and different judges would say otherwise. But I think they did a great job. But once again, judging is always subjective. So,
Yeah. I was like watching the movie yesterday and my dad
uh-huh.
like walked up to me. He was like, "Wow, these pictures are like so clear and like so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, they are." And then we were watching it on Apple TV and it was like a whole new with thing because we normally never use it. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
"Is it the app or is it like because it's so good?" I'm like, "I think it's just because it's good." Like honestly, because I believe too that the pictures are pretty good. I
Uh-huh.
think a lot of people just thought that they didn't deserve it was because 2021 was like a really weak time for film because of
Yeah.
all of COVID and stuff like that. So I think
Yes.
that's why they believe that they shouldn't have won.
Hmm.
But since it was a weak time, they just thought it won because, it was like decent like pictures for them, I guess.
Yeah, I guess there will always be like people that are rooting on different sides because like judging and opinions are just so subjective on different pieces
Yeah.
of art.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, just bringing up the topic of like how hard they worked on this film. I know Amelia Jones, who played Ruby, the main character, she had to learn how to sing as well as ASL. So
Mhm.
how do you feel about like the effort that they put into the movie?
Um, I'm really glad that she put like a lot of effort into like portraying her role, right? Because if
Uh-huh.
she didn't, then it would have just been trash. Like honestly, like she kind of carried like the whole movie production kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. Because if she wasn't there, then the whole thing would have just probably gone downfall. She
100%.
added like a lot of like spice to it, and I'm really glad she did like learn how to sing and learn how to like do her sign language stuff.
Hmm.
Because it really helped, because based on this whole movie, it's just based on deaf people, stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. So yeah, I'm really glad she put a lot of effort into learning all this.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with you on this one. I think for the portion of casting, at least, I think they did a great job of casting who they thought portrayed the role best and like had the drive to do it, which is, Ruby. But also they
Mhm.
had like the knowledge and influence to like recruit some actors that were actually deaf and knew the experience and
Mhm.
had experience in ASL and signing. And I just think that they did a great job in creating like a very well-rounded cast.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Something I do want to talk about is even though the movie was like really good, right?
Uh-huh.
And the audience really loved it and the critics also really loved it. A lot of people did say that the script was predictable and like
Yeah.
kind of basic and uninspired. So
Uh-huh.
do you believe this and like, your opinion on it?
I do believe that it was a little basic and uninspiring on the fact that it was so realistic because
Mhm.
I think it's a little hard to write such a good script when working with real life problems instead of like going into a whole nother like genre for like for example like fiction. Like you can create anything you want, but something that's kind of reflecting on real life stories, I think it's a little hard to come up with such a creative script. So I think they did a good job portraying it, but yes, it was a little cliche.
Yeah, I agree. Since it's based off like true events and stuff, it's
Yeah.
pretty hard to add in like things that would make it more interesting because you
Hmm.
have to like make sure it stays on based on true stories, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so like Red Notice is just all pow pow stuff like that. Like it's just all fighting and stuff. So it's pretty easy to add in like elements that would make it better. But for real life events, I feel like it'd be harder to like add in things that would pop out more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna read you kind of like a little excerpt from an article that I found, and I want to like kind
Hmm.
of ask you, what are your thoughts and where you're standing on something like this? So,
Okay.
from a New York Times article named "Representation and Stereotype: Deaf Viewers Are Torn Over CODA." So it says that deaf viewers feel torn because while they hope this moment will lead to better recognition and open more doors for more representation throughout Hollywood, they argue that the film views deaf people from a hearing perspective in its approach to interpreting for deaf people and to their relationship with music, among other issues. In some cases, this hearing gaze, as some have called it, led to scenes that may resonate with hearing viewers but fall flat with deaf viewers or even upset them.
Yes, I actually saw this when I was researching. So, honestly, yeah, I think if you were like deaf and you're watching this,
Yeah.
like there would be some parts that you wouldn't find that interesting because it's connecting more with people that can actually hear.
Hmm.
So I think that the movie could probably improve on trying to engage more of like the deaf audience in some parts that like actually like require you to hear what other people are saying.
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with your sentiment that the overall audience was most likely hearing audience, which is the big demographic in the world. But that's the one point that I think they could probably improve on would be being more authentic to the deaf community and maybe consulting somebody actually from the deaf community or specializing in ASL.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, wrapping this up, I know you any besides like not engaging well enough with the like deaf community. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you would say that they would want to like improve on and stuff?
Honestly, I don't really see much that they could improve on because it was just so raw, and many people said there were just no tricks or gimmicks. It was just a great piece of art in itself, and it was just, like, very vulnerable and very, like, realistic for, like, a film.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I feel like I wouldn't like fix a lot. I guess
Uh-huh.
it's just like based on the genre I watch, since I'm
Mhm.
not really interested in this kind of like movies and stuff.
Yeah.
More action girly, obviously. So yeah, but like honestly, if you like these kind of movies, there's nothing that I would change because
Mhm.
it's just based on what you like that kind of like builds
Absolutely.
this whole thing. Yeah, definitely. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.